Maple Grove, Florida, is home to me, Ethan Brooks, and my wife Sarah Brooks. One peaceful evening, the suburban air carried the scent of freshly cut grass, and pale yellow streetlights glowed over uniform houses. Sarah, 7 months pregnant, sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a baby catalog, her eyes lighting up as she pointed at a stuffed elephant. "Absolutely necessary, Ethan," she insisted. I, rummaging through the garage for old paint cans for the nursery, shook my head and laughed. "It'll take up all the space." We bickered playfully, unaware that minutes later, everything would turn upside down. A loud knock echoed, not the neighbor's gentle tap asking for sugar, but a heavy, urgent pounding, as if someone was trying to break the door down. Sarah, quicker than I expected, stood up before I could stop her. "I'll check," she said, heading to the front door. I heard her voice, calm but cautious. "Hello, how can I help?" Then a sharp female voice cut through Sarah's. "You people need to learn to follow the rules." I rushed out, heart pounding, and saw Valerie Thornton, Maple Grove HOA president, blocking the doorway, holding a chemical spray bottle, her eyes sharp as knives. She wore a pale blue blazer, a cheap HOA badge pinned to her chest, and was spraying herbicide on the rose garden, a memorial gift for Sarah's mother, who planted the first rosebushes before passing away 3 years ago. "What are you doing?" Sarah shouted, trying to push the door to stop Valerie. But Valerie, unfazed, stared straight into Sarah's eyes, her voice icy. "This rose garden violates the color regulations. I warned you 2 weeks ago." She sprayed another burst of chemicals, instantly yellowing the rose leaves. I stood a few meters away, stunned for a moment, then calmly reached into my pocket and pressed the alarm button on my car key. Somewhere in the garage, a silent signal activated, and the porch camera started recording. I didn't yell, didn't panic, just stepped forward and said, "You just bought yourself a bigger problem than you realize, Valerie." Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. Valerie glanced at me, hesitating slightly, but still smirked, turning away, leaving behind the acrid smell of chemicals. I pulled Sarah inside. She was trembling with anger, her eyes brimming with tears. "She destroyed my mom's rose garden, Ethan," Sarah whispered, clutching her belly as if protecting our unborn child. "Ours." I helped her to the sofa, trying to stay calm despite the rage boiling inside me. As a former security consultant, I was used to handling pressure, but Valerie's cruelty stunned me. Maple Grove, with its neat lawns and white picket fences, was where we wanted to raise our child. But under the HOA's rule, it felt like a prison. Valerie, a former sales manager with glossy blonde hair, ran the neighborhood like a queen. Her rules were absurdly ridiculous: no Christmas lights past the designated date, fines for trash cans left out over 6 hours, no kids drawing chalk on sidewalks. Our vibrant, meaningful rose garden was clearly a thorn in her side. I opened my laptop, checking the security system. Our house had cameras everywhere: front door, backyard, garage, every footage saved to a backup drive and the cloud. The recording showed Valerie spraying chemicals earlier, and another clip from the previous night, a hooded figure, driving a black SUV like Valerie's patrol teams, secretly spraying more herbicide. The angle didn't catch the face, but I knew she was behind it. The patrol team, guys in cheap blazers, had long prowled the neighborhood, intimidating residents with clipboards and glares. "Valerie," I muttered, clenching my fists. Sarah wiped her tears, her eyes shifting from grief to resolve. "She thinks she can do whatever she wants," she said. "Destroy our roses just because they don't suit her." I stayed silent, but my mind was already calculating. I didn't lash out or rush into a fight. I preferred preparation, planning, defeating opponents with facts. Valerie had gone too far. Sarah stood, hand on her belly, her voice firm. "Ethan, we're not just replanting flowers, we're holding a funeral, not for the roses, but for Valerie and her damn HOA." I looked at her, momentarily stunned, then laughed. The idea was crazy but perfect, a public humorous funeral to expose Valerie. "All right, love," I said, "we're going big, I hugged Sarah, feeling her warmth amid the anger. Outside, the rose garden withered under the streetlights, but inside me, a plan came alive. With the security system, patience and love for our garden, Valerie had just invited a bigger problem. After Valerie Thornton left, leaving the dying rose garden and the stench of chemicals, I brought Sarah inside, trying to soothe the fury raging within her. She sat on the sofa, hands still on her belly, her eyes icy. "She can't get away with this, Ethan," Sarah said. Her voice steady. "Not this time." I nodded, but my mind was already mapping the next steps. As a former security consultant, I knew emotions wouldn't beat someone like Valerie. I needed evidence, a plan and patience. I started by reviewing the security footage. Sitting at the computer, I slowed down each frame. The clip of Valerie spraying herbicide tonight was crystal clear, her face the spray bottle in hand, and the triumphant glint in her eyes, as the roses began to wilt. But the clip from the previous night, with the hooded figure, remained a question mark. The black SUV in the footage matched the one used by Valerie's self-appointed patrol team, guys in cheap blazers, cruising Maple Grove like fake cops. I saved both clips to a backup drive and uploaded them to the cloud, ensuring nothing could be erased. The next morning, I went to the front yard. The rose garden was now a pile of yellowed leaves. I collected soil samples, carefully sealed them in zip bags, and sent them to a gardener friend at the local nursery. The results came quickly: industrial-grade herbicide, a strong type sold only to weed control companies. I recalled seeing a similar canister in Valerie's trash last week, label intact. "Bingo," I muttered, but knew it wasn't enough to pin her yet. I decided to confront her directly. I walked across Maple Grove's stone-paved street to Valerie's pastel house, where a pompous lion statue stood guard at the door, as if she were royalty. Valerie answered, flashing her usual fake smile, but her eyes betrayed caution. "Ethan, what's this about?" she asked, her voice falsely sweet. I cut to the chase. "You vandalized our rose garden. I have footage, and I know about the herbicide." Valerie smirked, crossing her arms. "You're imagining things," she said. "Maybe you ruined it yourself and blamed me." "Careful, Ethan's slander is illegal." She slammed the door, but I noticed her hand tremble slightly. Back home, I dug deeper into Valerie. She was a former sales manager, skilled at manipulation, and had won the HOA presidency through a shady election no one verified. From there she imposed absurd rules: no sidewalk chalk drawings, fines for garage doors open over 5 minutes, even banning tomato plants for being unattractive. Her patrol team, self-styled HOA enforcers, had no legal authority, but still terrified residents. I hacked into the HOA's internal emails, a skill from my security days, and found one from Valerie to the patrol team, ordering them to deal harshly with non-compliant yards. It didn't name our rose garden, but it was enough to know she targeted us. I shared my findings with Sarah. Still angry, she laughed when she heard about the email. "She thinks she's the sheriff of Maple Grove," Sarah said. "We'll show her this neighborhood isn't hers alone." I nodded, feeling her resolve ignite me. But I knew beating Valerie required more than a video and a canister. I needed allies, and I needed the neighborhood behind us. I looked at the yard, where the rose garden withered under Florida's sun. Valerie might think she held all the cards, but she didn't know that. With the security system, my patience and our love for the garden, I'd started a fight she couldn't win. After the failed confrontation with Valerie Thornton, I knew that to bring her down, I needed more than a video and a herbicide canister. Valerie wasn't just a vandal ruining our rose garden, she was a system, a self-crowned queen of Maple Grove, using fear to control the neighborhood. Sarah, though still furious about the roses, was regaining her spirit. "We need the whole neighborhood, Ethan," she said, rubbing her belly, her eyes gleaming. "She can't win if we all stand together." I nodded, feeling her determination, but to make it happen, I had to find allies, people who'd suffered under Valerie for years. I started by knocking on a few neighbors' doors, carefully choosing those who'd shown frustration at HOA meetings. First was Maya Patel, an eccentric artist living 3 houses down. Maya opened the door, her hair loosely tied, her shirt streaked with paint. When I told her about the rose garden and Valerie's footage, her eyes blazed with anger. She fined me for painting a mural on my shed, Maya said, her voice trembling. Called it aesthetic vandalism. Then her patrol team photographed my yard at midnight, like thieves. Maya agreed to help but warned, "Be careful, Ethan. Valerie has spies everywhere." Next I visited Henry Walsh, a Vietnam veteran, living at the end of the street. Henry, in a Vietnam vet cap, was pruning bushes in his yard. When I told him about Valerie and the roses, he stopped, his wrinkled face hardening. "She threatened me for hanging my American flag at the wrong angle," Henry growled. "Sent her patrol team to my house like thugs, demanding I take it down. I refused, and a week later, they fined me $200 for overgrown grass that I'd just mowed the day before." Henry clenched his fists, but his eyes showed fear. "I want to help Ethan, but she's vicious." Finally, I met Ava Morales, a 16-year-old who skateboarded on the sidewalks. Ava was sitting outside her house, earbuds dangling, when I shared the story. She frowned, pulling off her earbuds. "Her patrol team stalked me," Ava said, "just for skateboarding on the street. One guy took pictures, said he'd send a report to Valerie. My mom got scared and banned me from going out after 6 p.m. Ava shook her head, but her eyes lit up at Sarah's funeral idea. "That sounds dope. I can post it on TikTok, let the world know who Valerie is." These three, Maya, Henry, Ava, had reasons to hate Valerie, but they were also scared. Maple Grove, with its pristine houses and manicured lawns, had become an invisible prison. Kids didn't dare play outside, neighbors avoided contact for fear of being reported. Valerie had turned the neighborhood into her kingdom, with her patrol team as soldiers and absurd rules as weapons. But when I shared the footage of Valerie spraying herbicide, a spark of hope flickered in their eyes. "We have proof," I said, "and I have a security system to protect it. But I need you." I revealed a bit about my past. As a former security consultant, I knew how to safeguard data and plan. Our house didn't just have cameras, every footage was encrypted, stored on a backup drive and the cloud. "Valerie can't touch the evidence," I said. "But we need more. We need everyone's stories, the whole neighborhood to rise up." Maya nodded, saying I can paint something to rile her up, a mural, or something for Sarah's funeral. Henry smirked, "I'll write a speech, list all her crimes." Ava raised her phone, "Leave social media to me." "Back home," I told Sarah. She laughed at Maya's idea. "A painting mocking Valerie." "Perfect," Sarah said. "We'll make this funeral an event the neighborhood won't forget." I looked at her, feeling her fire spread to me. Outside, the rose garden withered under Florida's sun, but inside, an alliance was forming. Valerie might think she controlled everything, but she didn't know that. With Maya, Henry, Ava, and our love for the garden, I'd started a fight she couldn't win. With Maya, Henry, and Ava's stories in my head, I returned home, feeling a smoldering fire ignite. Valerie Thornton hadn't just destroyed our rose garden, she'd turned Maple Grove into a stifling place where kids couldn't play and neighbors lived in fear. Sarah was at the kitchen table, flipping through the baby catalog, but her eyes were sharper than usual. "Find anything?" she asked. I told her about Maya, Henry, and Ava, the people Valerie had harassed, and how her funeral idea was becoming real. "We're going big, Sarah," I said. "A public humorous event to expose her." Sarah smiled, rubbing her belly. "Good, but make it something the neighborhood never forgets." We sat down, planning the funeral right in our front yard, a satirical outdoor party to mock Valerie and her damn HOA. The main idea, a fake coffin, painted with "Goodbye, Valerie's Empire," placed among newly planted roses as a symbol of rebirth. We'd invite the whole neighborhood, turning it into a unifying event with music, food, and humorous eulogies listing Valerie's sins. "She wants to control everything," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming. "We'll show her no one controls Maple Grove's spirit." I contacted our allies immediately. First was Maya Patel. I knocked on her door, and Maya, still in paint-splattered clothes, was thrilled at the idea. "A fake coffin, brilliant." She laughed. "I'll paint Valerie as a queen on it, wearing a crown made of fine notices." Maya agreed to build the coffin from scrap wood in her workshop, adding satirical banners like "Valerie, Queen of Fines." I sensed her creativity would make the event explosive. Next, I called Henry Walsh. He was in his backyard, fixing a lawnmower. When I told him about the funeral, Henry smirked and nodded. "I'll write a speech," he said, his voice low. "List everything, her finding my flag, finding neighbor's grass, turning this place into a jail." Henry promised to rehearse a sharp speech with a touch of military humor he often used. "Leave the talking to me," he winked. "She'll turn red with rage." Finally, I texted Ava Morales. She replied instantly with a fire emoji. "Funeral, so dope," Ava wrote. "I'll post videos on TikTok, make #Valerie Funeral go viral." Ava promised to film a promo clip, invite the neighborhood, and live stream the event to attract local media. "She hates social media." Ava laughed. "This'll be her nightmare." Ava's enthusiasm convinced me the younger generation would carry this story beyond Maple Grove. To prepare, I checked the security system. I added a camera facing the front yard, ensuring every moment of the funeral was recorded. The footage of Valerie spraying herbicide was safely stored, but I wanted to be ready if she or her patrol team tried to disrupt. I also ordered dozens of new rose bushes from the local nursery, planning to plant them around the fake coffin as a symbol of victory. Sarah, though tired from pregnancy, jumped in eagerly. She suggested making rose-shaped cookies for the party and writing a sign, "Our roses, our rights." As the plan took shape, I worried Valerie would catch wind. She had spies across the neighborhood, neutral neighbors ready to snitch to avoid trouble. "We have to move fast, quietly," I told Sarah. She nodded, but her eyes showed a resolve I rarely saw. "I lost my mom's rose garden," Sarah said, her voice low, "but this funeral will help me reclaim a piece of her. And the neighborhood, too." I hugged her, feeling her fire spread to me. That night, lying in bed, I looked out the window where the rose garden withered under Florida's moonlight. Valerie might think she held all the cards with her patrol team and absurd rules, but she didn't know that, with Maya, Henry, Ava and our love for the garden, an alliance was growing. The funeral wasn't just a prank, it was the first step to taking back Maple Grove. The funeral plan was coming together, but I knew Valerie Thornton wasn't easily outsmarted. With her self-appointed patrol team and network of spies across Maple Grove, she could sense trouble from afar. Sarah and I worked carefully, keeping everything secret, but one morning, as I checked the security cameras, a letter slipped under the door. Outside, the envelope bore the HOA logo, inside a cold typed message, "Cease all unauthorized activities or face legal action, Valerie Thornton." Sarah read it, smirking. "She knows," she said, her eyes gleaming. "Good, let her panic." I guessed a neutral neighbor had snitched. Maybe someone saw Maya hauling wood or overheard Ava mentioning #Valerie Funeral. Valerie didn't mention the funeral directly, but the letter was clearly a preemptive strike. I checked the security footage, and sure enough, last night, a black SUV cruised near our house, pausing by our yard for a few minutes. The license plate was blurry, but it matched Valerie's patrol team's vehicle. "She's spying," I told Sarah. She nodded, her voice firm. "Let her come. We have cameras." I decided to confront her again, wanting to see how much she'd reveal. I walked across Maple Grove's stone-paved street to her pastel house, the pompous lion statue still looming at the door. Valerie answered, her fake smile not hiding her anxious eyes. "Ethan, what now?" she asked, crossing her arms. I held up the letter. "You know about our plans, don't you? Scared the neighborhood will see the real you." Valerie laughed, but it wavered. "Plans, you're imagining things. But I warn you, if you cause trouble, I'll sue." Then, as if she couldn't hold back, she blurted, "And don't think I don't know about your stupid rose garden. It deserved to be destroyed." I stayed calm, but inside, I cheered. The tiny camera on my jacket, a holdover from my security days, recorded every word she said. Back home, I reviewed the footage. Valerie's line, "It deserved to be destroyed," was golden evidence. I saved it to the backup drive and cloud, sending copies to Maya, Henry, and Ava. Maya texted back immediately. She dug her own grave. "Use this in the funeral," Henry called, excited. "I'll add that line to my speech." "She's done." Ava posted a vague TikTok, hinting at a big secret to be revealed at the event, boosting #Valerie Funeral's buzz. But Valerie didn't stop. That afternoon, a police car parked outside. Deputy Sheriff Torres, a local familiar, stepped out and knocked. "Got a complaint about unauthorized gathering," he said, his tone mild. I invited him in, explaining the funeral, a friendly party, fully legal. I showed Torres the footage of Valerie spraying herbicide and her latest admission. He frowned, shaking his head. "She's gone too far," Torres said. "I can't stop your event if it's legal. But keep it orderly, all right?" I nodded, thanking him. Torres clearly disliked Valerie, and I knew he'd watch her. That night, I checked the HOA email, hacking into another document, a receipt showing Valerie used $500 of HOA funds to pay her patrol team, labeled maintenance services. No invoice, no contract, just a handwritten note, "Yard surveillance." This evidence, with the footage, was enough to expose her. Sarah, hearing about the receipt, laughed. "She thinks she's untouchable," she said. "But the funeral will be her last day." I looked at the yard, where the rose garden withered under the streetlights. Valerie was panicking, but she didn't know that, with the new footage, Maya, Henry Ava's support, and our love for the garden, she'd pushed herself into a fight she couldn't win. The funeral was coming, and I was ready. With Valerie Thornton's threatening letter, and her careless admission, it deserved to be destroyed. Caught on camera, I knew the funeral was no longer just a satire. It would be a knockout blow, exposing Valerie to all of Maple Grove. Sarah, though exhausted from pregnancy, was energized as we finalized the plan. "She brought this on herself," she said, her eyes gleaming, holding a tray of freshly baked rose-shaped cookies. "Tomorrow, the neighborhood will see who she is." I nodded, but stayed wary. Valerie wasn't one to give up easily, and her patrol team was lurking. The night before the event, Sarah, our allies, and I scrambled to prepare. Maya Patel brought the fake coffin, a work of art from scrap wood, painted with "Goodbye Valerie's Empire," in bold red. On the lid, she drew a caricature of Valerie wearing a crown of fine notices, holding a herbicide sprayer. "She'll lose it when she sees this," Maya laughed, setting the coffin in our front yard. Sarah and I planted new rose bushes around it, each a symbol of the neighborhood's rebirth. "My mom would love this," Sarah whispered, touching a petal. Henry Walsh arrived with a draft of his speech. He read a few lines, his voice low but sharp, listing Valerie's crimes, fining his American flag, fake grass fines, and our rose garden. "I'll end with her line, 'It deserved to be destroyed.'" Henry winked. "The residents will be furious." I clapped his shoulder, feeling the strength of a veteran ready to fight. Ava Morales, meanwhile, sent updates. Her TikTok video had 500 views, and #Valerie funeral was spreading. Even a local reporter messaged me. Ava wrote, with a fire emoji. She promised to live stream the entire event, ensuring the world saw Valerie's downfall, but not everything went smoothly. Checking the security cameras at midnight, I saw a black SUV cruising near our house, pausing by our yard for a few minutes. The street light glinted off the windshield, hiding the driver, but I was sure it was Valerie's patrol team. I checked the system, ensuring all footage was safely stored on the backup drive and cloud. "She's scared," I told Sarah, pointing at the screen. Sarah nodded, but her eyes showed rare worry. "Ethan, what if she disrupts it?" she asked. I took her hand, smiling. "We have cameras, allies, and the neighborhood. She doesn't stand a chance." To be safe, I called Deputy Sheriff Torres, who'd visited before. I reported the suspicious SUV, not directly accusing Valerie, but enough to get his attention. "I'll have a patrol keep an eye out," Torres said over the phone. "But Ethan, keep the event peaceful, all right? I don't want trouble." I promised to stay legal, thanking him. Torres clearly disliked Valerie, and I knew he'd lean toward justice if things escalated. With everything set, Sarah and I sat on the porch, looking at the fake coffin and new roses under Florida's moonlight. Sarah spoke of her mom, who loved roses, and taught her to care for them. "Losing the garden hurt," she said, her voice low, "but this funeral isn't just revenge. It's about taking back the neighborhood, what she stole." I hugged her, feeling her warmth, and our unborn child. "We'll do it," I said. "For your mom, for us, for Maple Grove." That night, I double-checked everything: cameras, footage, the coffin, the roses. I sent a final message to Maya, Henry, and Ava, ready. Tomorrow is our day. All three replied instantly, full of fire. Outside, the old rose garden withered, but the new rose bushes were rising. Valerie might think she controlled everything with her patrol team and absurd rules, but she didn't know that, with evidence, allies, and our love for the garden, the funeral would be a turning point. Tomorrow, Maple Grove would no longer be her kingdom. The day of the funeral arrived, and Maple Grove had never been so alive. Our front yard transformed into an outdoor stage, with Maya Patel's fake coffin at the center. Goodbye, Valerie's empire, blazing red under Florida's sun. The newly planted rose bushes around it gave off a gentle scent, a declaration that Valerie Thornton couldn't kill the neighborhood spirit. Sarah, despite her heavy pregnancy, bustled about, arranging trays of rose-shaped cookies and a handwritten sign, "Our roses, our rights." I checked the security cameras one last time, ensuring every angle was covered. Today, Valerie would face the entire neighborhood. Residents started arriving early, more than I expected, nearly 50 people, from young families to elderly folks with canes. They brought food, drinks, and homemade signs. "Valerie, give us our neighborhood back." Maya controlled a Bluetooth speaker, playing upbeat jazz mixed with Bohemian Rhapsody, to taunt Valerie, who'd once find a neighbor for outdoor music. Henry Walsh, in his Vietnam vet cap, stood by the coffin, rehearsing his speech, his voice booming as he tested lines. Ava Morales, phone in hand, live-streamed the event on TikTok, with #ValerieFuneral surpassing 2,000 views. Channel 7's reporter is on the way, she texted, eyes gleaming. The atmosphere was both festive and tense, like an artistic protest. I stood on the porch, watching the crowd, feeling a unity Valerie never anticipated. Sarah joined me, taking my hand. "We did it, Ethan," she whispered, rubbing her belly. I nodded, but kept an eye on the street, wary of Valerie's patrol team showing up, and then, as expected, she arrived. Valerie Thornton stepped out of her silver Lexus, wearing her usual pastel outfit, sunglasses covering half her face. She strode through the crowd, shoving people aside, and stopped at the fake coffin. "What is this?" she screamed, her face red. "A sick joke, I'll sue you all for defamation," the crowd murmured, some smirking. I stepped down, calm, signaling Maya to crank up the speaker. "Valerie," I said, voice clear, "you brought this on yourself. You destroyed our rose garden, threatened the neighborhood. Today is the funeral, for your power." She spun toward me, eyes blazing. "You have no proof," she shouted. That was the moment I'd waited for. I signaled Ava, and she projected the footage from her phone onto a makeshift screen in the yard. The image of Valerie spraying herbicide on the roses played, followed by her words from our confrontation, "It deserved to be destroyed." The crowd erupted, boos rang out, someone yelled, "She destroyed their garden," an elderly woman nearby added, "She fined me for wind chimes, said they were dangerous." Valerie paled, stepping back, but there was no escape. Henry stepped forward, taking the mic Maya handed him. "Residents of Maple Grove," he began, voice low but sharp, "Valerie Thornton turned this neighborhood into a prison. She fined my American flag, called it wrongly angled. She fined neighbors' grass, even when freshly mowed. And she destroyed Ethan and Sarah's rose garden, because it was too colorful." He paused, staring at Valerie. "She said the garden deserved to be destroyed. But today, we bury her empire." The crowd roared with applause, some waving signs, "Valerie, get out." Valerie tried to shout over them, "You're all being manipulated. This is a lie," but no one listened. Maya blasted Sweet Caroline, a song Valerie had banned for being too loud, and the crowd sang along, drowning her out. Ava live-streamed it all, commenting, "Valerie's crumbling." "Y'all," a news van parked nearby, and a Channel 7 reporter started filming. Valerie, realizing she was surrounded, turned to her car, but not before blurting, "You'll all regret this." My camera caught that, adding another bullet to our evidence stash. Deputy Sheriff Torres arrived soon after, likely called by a Valerie supporter. I approached, explaining this was a peaceful gathering, fully legal. I showed Torres the footage and detailed Valerie's actions. He nodded, glancing at her as she sped off in her Lexus. She's digging her own grave. Torres said, but keep things under control, Ethan. I promised, thanking him. Torres clearly leaned toward justice. As Valerie vanished, the crowd cheered. Maya hugged Sarah, Henry raised a triumphant fist, and Ava shouted. We did it. I pulled Sarah close, feeling her warmth amid the victory. The fake coffin stood tall, the new roses glinting in the sun. This is for my mom, Sarah said. Eyes misty, and for us. I nodded, looking at the crowd, people once afraid of Valerie, now standing tall, laughing loudly. Outside, Florida's sun lit up the new rose garden. Valerie might think she was untouchable with her patrol team and absurd rules, but today, with footage, allies, and our love for the garden, we showed her Maple Grove was no longer her kingdom. The funeral was a turning point, but I knew the fight wasn't over. Valerie would strike back, and I was ready. After the spectacular funeral in our front yard, Maple Grove came alive. Ava Morales' livestream went viral on social media, with #ValerieFuneral racking up tens of thousands of views, and the footage of Valerie Thornton, admitting to destroying the rose garden, spread across neighborhood chat groups. Residents, once cowed by fear, now held their heads high, sending emails demanding an emergency HOA meeting. We have to remove her, Ethan. Sarah said, eyes gleaming as she read the supportive messages. I nodded, knowing the funeral was just the start. To end Valerie's reign, we needed a final battle at the community center. The meeting was set for the next evening, in Maple Grove's musty meeting room, usually hosting a dozen people discussing lawn watering schedules. But this time, nearly 60 residents crammed into the stifling space, the ceiling fan creaking, the air electric with revolution. Valerie sat at the head table, in her pastel outfit, forcing a fake smile, but her hands shook as she shuffled papers. I brought my laptop and projector, standing near the door, ready for the decisive moment. Valerie opened the meeting, her voice falsely sweet. Thank you all for coming, she said. Today, we'll discuss the pool maintenance schedule, but before she could finish, a man stood cutting her off. We're not here for the pool, Valerie. Talk about the rose garden. Applause erupted, and Valerie paled. I stepped forward, plugging my laptop into the projector without waiting for her permission. If you won't talk, I said, voice calm, I'll do it for you. The screen lit up with the footage, Valerie spraying herbicide on the roses, followed by her confrontation line. It deserved to be destroyed. The crowd exploded, boos echoing through the room. She vandalized property, a woman shouted. She fined me for wind chimes, called them weapons, an elderly man added. Valerie tried to shout over them, that's fake, you're all being manipulated. But no one listened, I continued, projecting Valerie's internal email ordering the patrol team to deal harshly, and the receipt showing her using $500 of HOA funds for maintenance with no invoice. Just then, Tom Rivera, former HOA vice president, walked in. I'd heard of Tom, who left the neighborhood after Valerie took over, but hadn't met him. He held a stack of documents, his voice low. I'm Tom Rivera, and I have evidence. Tom presented emails Valerie forged with his signature to pass emergency powers, and a message she sent to the patrol team, ordering them to intimidate non-compliant residents. She has no legal authority, Tom said, staring at Valerie. She crowned herself president. The room erupted. Residents shouted, demanding her removal. Valerie slammed the table, yelling, "You have no authority. It takes a board to vote," but Tom smiled, holding up a copy of the HOA bylaws. "You dissolved the board last month, Valerie, when you declared an emergency restructure. No board, the residents have full power," someone shouted, "Vote now." I stood beside Sarah, feeling her hand grip mine tightly. The vote took 5 minutes, result 58/60 votes to remove Valerie, 2 neutrals abstaining. Valerie stood, face red, screaming, "You'll all regret this. I'll sue everyone." She grabbed her bag, stormed out, leaving papers scattered. The crowd cheered, some hugging, Maya slapping my shoulder, laughing, "We did it, Ethan. Ava live-streamed Valerie's exit, commenting, "The queen has fallen, y'all." I emailed all the evidence, footage, emails, receipts to every resident, titled, "This is what happens when power goes unchecked." Messages flooded back, from thanks to pledges to keep fighting. Sarah hugged me, eyes misty. "For my mom," she said. "And for Liam," I nodded, thinking of our unborn son. Outside, Florida's moonlight lit the community center. Valerie had lost, but I knew she wouldn't stop. She'd sue, she'd retaliate. But with footage, allies, and Maple Grove's unity, I was ready. This meeting didn't just remove Valerie, it woke the neighborhood. The meeting to remove Valerie Thornton was a resounding victory, but I knew the battle wasn't over. Valerie wasn't the type to accept defeat easily. After fleeing the Maple Grove Community Center, she posted a long rant in the neighborhood chat group, claiming to be a victim of a smear campaign. She called my footage fake, and threatened to sue everyone for defamation. Sarah, reading it, smirked, "She's desperate," but I didn't let my guard down. With the security system, evidence, and the neighborhood's unity, I was ready for a legal fight. Valerie moved fast. 2 days later, I received a letter from an expensive lawyer, accusing me of holding an illegal funeral and spreading false information. It demanded $50,000 in damages, and a retraction of the footage. Sarah, reading the letter, squeezed my hand. "She thinks she can scare us," she said. "But we'll take this to court, let the world know who she is." I nodded, contacting a lawyer friend from my security consulting days. He took the case, calling our evidence pure gold. Meanwhile, Deputy Sheriff Torres opened an investigation into Valerie, based on the footage and receipts I provided. One afternoon, Torres stopped by with an update. "We checked the HOA accounts," he said, voice serious. "Valerie withdrew $15,000, labeled as maintenance services, but there's no invoices. Just Venmo transfers to her patrol team, with notes like surveillances or handling." He frowned. "This isn't just vandalism, Ethan, it's fund misappropriation and conspiracy to intimidate." I handed over Valerie's internal emails ordering the patrol team to deal harshly with residents. Torres nodded. "She's facing criminal charges." Sarah and I filed a civil lawsuit, seeking damages for the Rose Garden and the emotional distress she endured while pregnant. Maya Patel, Henry Walsh, and Ava Morales agreed to testify, sharing how Valerie harassed them. Maya spoke of her mural fine, Henry of his American flag, and Ava of being stalked by the patrol team. Tom Rivera, former HOA vice president, provided the forged signature emails bolstering evidence of Valerie's power abuse. I organized everything: footage, emails, receipts, testimonies, into a thick file, ready for court. The trial took place at the local courthouse, drawing a crowd of residents and a few reporters, still following #Valerie funeral from Ava's TikTok. Valerie sat at the defendant's table, heavily made up but visibly worn. Her lawyer argued the footage was edited and the funeral was harassment. But when our lawyer played the video, Valerie spraying herbicide, saying it deserved to be destroyed, the courtroom went silent. Next came the emails, receipts and testimonies from Maya, Henry, Ava. Valerie squirmed, shouting, "I was just trying to keep the neighborhood beautiful." But when the judge asked why she used HOA funds to pay an unauthorized patrol team, she stammered, unable to answer. The climax came when Tom Rivera testified, presenting the forged signature emails. "She crowned herself with power," Tom said, staring at Valerie. "She turned the HOA into her personal tool." Valerie, face red, shouted, "I did it for the community." But the judge cut her off, voice cold. "Leadership without accountability is tyranny in disguise." The verdict came swiftly. Valerie was found liable, ordered to pay $300,000, $250,000 to Sarah for pregnancy-related distress, $50,000 for property damage. She also had to repay the $15,000 misappropriated HOA funds. The fallout hit like a storm. Valerie's bank accounts were frozen, her pastel house and silver Lexus seized to cover debts. One morning, the neighborhood watched a tow truck haul the Lexus away, Ava live streaming with the caption, "Goodbye Valerie." The new HOA, led by Tom Rivera, met immediately, canceling all absurd fines and revising rules for fairness. They invited me to join the board, but I declined. "I just want a peaceful neighborhood," I said, looking at Sarah's smile. That night, Sarah and I sat on the porch, Florida's moonlight shining on the new rose garden. "We did it, Ethan," she said, rubbing her belly. "For my mom, for Liam, for everyone." I nodded, feeling the victory wasn't just defeating Valerie, but awakening Maple Grove. Valerie might sue again, but with evidence, allies, and our love for the garden, she had no chance. Justice was close, and I knew it would stay. After the court ruling, Maple Grove felt unburdened. Valerie Thornton, once the self-crowned queen, lost everything: her pastel house, silver Lexus, and HOA power. Residents, once fearful, now smiled meeting on sidewalks. Kids skateboarded again, basketballs bounced in driveways, and weekend BBQs brought Florida's suburban air back to life. Sarah and I, sitting on the porch, watched the new rose garden bloom, feeling a rare peace. "We took back the neighborhood, Ethan," Sarah said, rubbing her belly where Liam, our unborn son, was growing. The new HOA, led by Tom Rivera, was a breath of fresh air. They held open meetings, where residents freely pitched ideas. Absurd rules, no sidewalk chalk, no wind chimes, were scrapped. Fines from Valerie's era were refunded, and a community fund started for a flower planting festival, giving every house free rosebushes. Maya Patel painted a mural at the community center, "Roses Intertwined," captioned, "Maple Grove, Freedom and Unity." Henry Walsh rehung his American flag, this time unchallenged. Ava Morales, now the neighborhood's TikTok star, posted videos of the changes, calling it Florida's best place to live. One afternoon, residents surprised Sarah and me with a baby shower at the community center. They decorated with balloons and roses, bringing cakes and gifts. Maya gave a small painting of Sarah by the rose garden. Henry handed over a wooden box engraved with Liam, saying, "So the boy knows how his parents fought." Ava, beaming, presented a onesie printed with "Born Free" from Valerie. The room burst into laughter. Sarah hugged me, eyes misty. "This is our family, Ethan," she whispered. I nodded, feeling Maple Grove's warmth, not just a neighborhood, but a community. Weeks later, I received a letter from the district attorney's office. Valerie took a plea deal to avoid criminal prosecution, but was permanently banned from participating in any HOA or community organization in Florida. It was the final blow, stripping her of what she valued most: control. I printed the letter, framed it, and hung it by the security system in the garage, not to gloat, but as a reminder: preparation, truth, and unity always defeat abusers of power. Sarah, seeing the frame, laughed, "She'll never forget us." We welcomed Liam on a cool morning, as the roses outside bloomed. Sarah, holding him in the rose-themed nursery, smiled, "My mom would love him." I nodded, thinking of the journey from the destroyed rose garden to the funeral and trial. Every step, from camera footage to the support of Maya, Henry, Ava, and the neighborhood, brought us here. Maple Grove didn't just reclaim freedom, it found its voice. That night, I stood on the porch, holding Liam in a blanket, watching Florida's sunset gild the street, free of black SUVs prowling, clipboards threatening, or Valerie Thornton. The funeral didn't just bury her power, it awakened a community. I thought of Valerie's lesson: unchecked power can turn anyone into a tyrant, but unity can bring them down. With the security system, Sarah's love, and Maple Grove's spirit, we proved it. I stroked Liam's hair, whispering, "You'll grow up in a good place, son." Outside, the roses bloomed, proof that though destroyed, we could always replant, stronger than ever. The story HOA Karen poisoned my roses. So I hosted her a funeral in my front yard, reflects real issues in American life today. Especially power abuse in homeowners associations, HOAs, and the strength of communities facing injustice. In the story, Valerie Thornton, with absurd rules like banning sidewalk chalk, or fining an American flag for being wrongly angled, represents individuals who misuse authority in local organizations. a common problem in American suburban neighborhoods, where HOAs tightly control everything from house paint colors to Christmas light displays. Her destruction of Ethan and Sarah's rose garden, a memorial to Sarah's mother, shows how personal vendettas can escalate when power goes unchecked. However, Ethan's response, from using security cameras to gather evidence, rallying allies like Maya, Henry and Ava, to staging the creative public funeral, reflects the spirit of unity and modern technology, like TikTok and live streaming and fighting back, prevalent in American society today. The funeral wasn't just satire but a symbol of peaceful resistance, akin to American social media-driven community movements against injustice. The court ruling, with Valerie losing her house and HOA ban, underscores that the American legal system can deliver justice with clear evidence. The lesson, when facing power abuse, patiently gather evidence, like Ethan's footage, build alliances with residents like Maya and Henry, and use creativity, like the funeral or Ava's TikTok for peaceful resistance. In American life, where individual freedom and community responsibility intersect, unity, transparency, and technology protect rights and build stronger communities. Subscribe to the channel to catch more stories about how we unite to protect neighborhoods like Maple Grove. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with even more surprises.